come with me. Come this way. This will work. Okay. Good. Finally. Now that feels better. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week 11 of my weekly CFL football pick show for the 2025 CFL season and postseason. And whoever gave that to me, I love you all. We finally did it. Finally, double digits, 10-2 across all picks in the CFL in week 10, the breakout week that I felt it was coming. For weeks now, I felt it was coming. And it's so insanely gratifying for me, who have been in this grind, obviously, week in and week out, all season long. There's a lot of you that's been watching every single one of these episodes all season long, right alongside me, waiting for that breakout to happen. It finally happened in week 10. I hope it feels at least a little bit as gratifying to you for kind of sticking with me as it does to me right now, because I got to tell you, it feels insanely gratifying to me right now. And with that massive 10-2 week, what that means is I'm not only a full 11 games above 500 straight up on the season, 25-14, it brings me pretty well right in line with the CFL.ca writers, who I kind of use at least kind of as a measuring stick there. Like, I'd like to line up with the people that make the official picks on the website every week. So it's kind of nice to be at least competitive or even ahead of some of the people there. But for the first time, maybe all season, I'm actually above 500 on the season, like across all picks in the CFL. 59, 57, and 1. It all kind of came together all in one magical week. And while that's not a lot to celebrate, it's definitely something with the way the season started. But let's go ahead and celebrate something that is worth celebrating. Another massive week in CFL fantasy. 138.5 points in week 10 in CFL fantasy. 1179.1 now on the season, which of course means I'm averaging 117.9 per week through the first 10 weeks of the season. And that has caused me to jump up inside the top 150 across the entirety of the CFL fantasy game. Number 115 overall, in fact, a jump of 59 places from last week. I am a full, 60 plus points. 65 actually inside the top 500 and a full 30 points inside of the top 250. So can't take my foot off the gas. One bad week and I could tumble back, but man, it feels really good to be this competitive with everybody. Like, there's nobody in CFL fantasy that I feel like I'm not competitive with. In my two fantasy leagues, the CFL Central Fantasy Football League as well as Christina Costabile's league, I'm inside the top 15, and that's in CFL Fantasy. That's the single biggest CFL Fantasy League, or the CFL Central, the single biggest CFL Fantasy League across the whole game. I'm in 15th place out of over 1,300 entries in that league, a jump of 9 places from last week. And in Christina's league, I have cracked the top 10. I'm in 10th place out of 370, a jump of 5 spots. And shout out to my MVP from last week, Lions running back James Butler, who touched the ball 18 times, put up 140 all-purpose yards, scored 2 touchdowns, 1 through the air and 1 on the ground, I believe. Good for an even 30 points exactly. He was my MVP last week. So we took our few minutes here to have our victory lap, pat ourselves on the back. It is a new week, and it is a competitive week at that. Let's look at the matchups here for CFL Week 11. We got the Ottawa Redblacks on the road in Winnipeg. We've got the Toronto Argos on the road in Edmonton. Hamilton is in Saskatchewan to take on the Riders, and Montreal is in BC to take on the Lions. The Calgary Stampeders are off on bye this week. So let's kick things off at Princess Auto Stadium. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers playing host to the Ottawa Redblacks. Ottawa coming into this game on a 2-game winning streak. Winnipeg dropping their game last week. Now the Redblacks have won, like I said, back-to-back games coming out of their bye week, overcoming a 3-possession deficit in the first quarter of their game last week. It certainly looked like all was lost there against the Argos. Ottawa came back. Meanwhile, the Bombers dropped a tight game in Calgary, which featured an absolute masterclass from both of their kickers. Sergio Castillo kicking a 63-yard field goal last week, and Rene Paredes kicking a 40-yard game winner with zeros on the clock. If you love special teams, you loved that game last week. For Ottawa, Drew Brown dominated the Argos secondary. 5 touchdown passes. He's now thrown 7 touchdowns to just 1 pick over his last 2 games. Also noteworthy, William Stanback appears to have fully taken over this backfield here for the Redblacks in the last 2 games. Carried the ball 30 times for $136 on the ground. Last week was notable for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in that it was their first non-multi-interception game from Zach Collaros, probably any starting quarterback this season, to be honest. But from Zach Collaros, his first non-multi-interception game since week 4. But in that same span, Collaros has only thrown 3 touchdown passes. I think a lot of people are going to look at this as a trap game, especially when I tell you what the spread of this game is, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I look at every Winnipeg loss this season, and every loss has come against a team that was, at that time, I believe, better than Ottawa is right now. So part of Winnipeg's record, which I think is 4-4, I think is their record, part of that is, strength of competition, obviously, but I feel like every loss that they've had, again, has come against a team that is better than their opponents are right now. So I think I got to lean Winnipeg in this one. They are 3-1 at home. So obviously Winnipeg's got one of the biggest home field advantages across the CFL, and that has shown itself in their home record year over year. So I think I'm going to lean on the Bombers to get the win here. It is their 5th consecutive game, but Ottawa's playing back-to-back games on the road. So you've got to take all these things kind of into consideration here. You got a really good home team against a team that's playing their 2nd straight road game that obviously, Ottawa's won 2 straight games. They've only won 3 games all year. So, they really struggled to start the season. They're playing better now, but I like the home team here. Give me the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at home to get the win over Ottawa. Now, again, this is why I think people are going to look at this as a bit of a trap game. Winnipeg is laying -6. So the second you see that spread, you're like, there's no way they should be laying 6 points. So I'm going to completely go in the opposite direction and take Ottawa. I'm not going to do that. I like Winnipeg to win the game. I am going to take the +6 on Ottawa. That is just for me a little bit too much in terms of the point spread. It is going against the fact that Winnipeg is 5-3 against the spread. So they're doing fairly well against Vegas this season, but -6, almost a full touchdown. I think it is too much. I think this is a relatively high-scoring game, but I think it stays very competitive. Obviously, you got the storyline of Drew Brown returning to Winnipeg. So I like a high-scoring game, but I like it to stay close. So I'm going to take the +6 points on the Redblacks. Total in the game set at 51.5 points. I am going to lean on the fact that Winnipeg is 6-2 to the over this year. Let's take an over on that 51.5 point total, though the rest of the league really has been trending under the last month or so. We're going to take an over on this specific number. I like a 30-27 in favor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Apologies for the helicopter that's leaving just outside my window. I like Winnipeg to win. Give me the +6 on the Redblacks. Let's take an over on the 51.5 point total. 30-27 is your final. Let's go to Edmonton now, where the Elks are going to play host to the Toronto Argos. The Argos have dropped 2 consecutive games, sitting at 2-7 on the season thus far. This is going to be Toronto's 5th consecutive game without a bye. Edmonton sitting at 2-6, but did at the very least come out with a win last week. Argos, dropping their second straight, have lost 4 of their last 5 games overall, coughing up that 21-point lead that I talked about earlier, and allowed a touchdown interception finish in the last 45 seconds. That meaning Ottawa scored a touchdown, and then Toronto immediately threw an interception on the ensuing possession. That is how that game came to a close last week. In Edmonton, the Elks chased McLeod Bethel-Thompson from their game last week against Montreal. Now, part of that, I think, was an elbow injury, but Al's head coach, Jason Moss, did say he made the quarterback change because of performance. So they chase MBT. They score 12 points in the fourth quarter behind an absolutely Herculean effort from Cody Fajardo, where he was their only offense on the ground. A big reason why the Argos came up losers in that game last week. They buckled like a belt in terms of their defense in the red zone. They allowed Ottawa to go 5 for 5, scoring touchdowns when they got in the red zone. The red zone defense for the Argos completely disappeared in that game. It stayed a shootout, and it wound up costing them. Like I said, with the Elks, their run game absolutely disappeared last week. Cody Fajardo put up 14 yards on 3 carries. The combination of Rankin and Leak carried the ball 6 times for 0 yards. It's good to know that I had as many rushing yards sitting in my bedroom as the Edmonton Elks running backs did. In saying that about Justin Rankin, he might be the Elks' best receiver. And it's not just catching swing passes out of the backfield. Like, he's finding openings in the secondary. He's beating guys who are lined up on him specifically. He might be their overall best receiver. In the last 3 games, Rankin has been targeted 18 times. He's caught 15 balls for a $192 and a receiving score. So just because Nick Arbuckle had a 4-touchdown game last week, which is what he did, he had 3 through the air and 1 on the ground, I believe. His 4-touchdown game does not equal he's the better quarterback in this specific matchup this week. I am taking the better quarterback in a matchup that features 2 very questionable defenses. I'm going to take the better quarterback, and as far as I'm concerned, Cody Fajardo has displayed himself to be the better, more consistent quarterback between the two. I'm going to take the Edmonton Elks here to get their 2nd consecutive win, get the win at home, send the Argos to their 3rd straight loss. I mean, changes have to be coming in Toronto, you have to believe. I like the Elks to get the win over the Argos. On the line, Edmonton's actually laying a full field goal in this game at -3. Now, neither one of these teams have been overly impressive against the spread this season, but I like Edmonton to win 3 points. It's right at the top end of my, small price to pay for the team that I think is going to win the game. So I guess I kind of got to hold my nose here a little bit and take the -3 on the Edmonton Elks. Now, total in this game set at 53.5. Edmonton gets really big lines because the conception with their defense, and justifiably so, is that their scoring defense is very bad. And I get that. And Toronto's defensive efficiency is very bad. We've talked about that for weeks now. What I will say, Edmonton has only actually hit 3 overs this season in 8 games. So they're under 500 to the over, and Edmonton is running a streak of 4 consecutive unders. Under. I think that streak continues. Give me the under in this game. It's a sneaky under, but give me the under in this one. 27-20, I think, is your final score here in Edmonton. Elks win, Elks cover the -3, and give me an under on the 53.5 point total. I think people are not going to like that very much. Let's take a peek at a prospective Grey Cup preview here as the Hamilton Ticats are in Saskatchewan at Mosaic taking on the Roughriders. Now, Saskatchewan coming into this game off of their bye, sitting there at 7-1 on the season, winners of 3 consecutive games. But let's take a peek at Hamilton first of all. Hamilton did lose last week, as I said they would. Very competitive game that went into overtime. Their win streak snapped at 6, that overtime loss to BC. Again, Riders are off their bye, winners of 3 straight games. Both of these teams sit alone atop the standings of their respective divisions, but only by 2 points apiece. So I made a big deal last week talking about the rest discrepancy of the Ticats game where they had been playing, or that would be their 7th consecutive game, facing a team that's coming in off of their bye. And I don't think the slop necessarily set in with the Ticats in their game last week, but it's worth noting they did lose 2 fumbles and went just 1 for 5 defensively in the red zone. And I think when you start taking a look at their injury report that they're coming into this week with, the number of guys that are dealing with, a nick here, a bruise here, a contusion here, a strain here, like that's kind of starting to pile up a little bit, reflective of the fact that they've played football for 7 straight weeks. Over the Riders' 3-game win streak, they have outscored their opponents 88-51. Trevor Harris has thrown 7 touchdowns to just 1 interception in that same span, and he's averaging 318 yards passing per game. So he is slinging the football all over the place. The defense is also white hot. They're coming into this game with a D-efficiency score of 20 over their last 4 games, and they've generated 5 defensive turnovers in the last 3. The Ticats are 4-1 away from home this season, so they've really gotten things done when they've hit the road. However, this is the 2nd straight game where the Ticats are facing a wild rest discrepancy. This will be their 8th consecutive game, once again for the 2nd week in a row, playing a team that's coming off of their bye, well-rested, refreshed, maybe getting some guys back, certainly in the receiving core there for the Riders. I think I'm going to bite for the 2nd week in a row. I like the Riders to win this game. Again, a prospective Grey Cup preview here. I like the Riders to get this win, extend the win streak to 4, hand the Ticats just their 2nd loss on the road this year. I like Saski to beat Hamilton. So, on the line, Saskatchewan laying -3, the same that Edmonton is laying in their game against Toronto. Saski is 6-2 against the spread this season. I'll bite on that. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -3, although this one's obviously going to be competitive, where I think this might be the best 2 teams in the CFL right now. Total in the game set at 53.5 points. Again, I kind of like an under here. These are 2 of arguably the best defenses in the league. And while it's true that it's probably the 2 best quarterbacks in the league, I don't know. 53.5 just feels like a lot, especially when the league is kind of trending under over the last while. So let's take an under on the 53.5 point total. I'm going to go like 28-23. Again, super competitive game. Probably comes down to the last possession or 2 in this one. Maybe it's even a walk-off. Who knows? But 28-23, I like that as the final score. Give me Saski to win. Give me Saski to cover the -3 and give me an under on the 53.5 point total. The last game we're going to look at, the last game of the week, the Montreal Alouettes in BC taking on the Lions. Alouettes are 3-1 away from home this season, but are coming into this game off of back-to-back losses, also their 5th consecutive game without a bye. The Lions have only won 1 home game so far this year. You got to assume that they're a better team than that, but they haven't had a lot of success in BC to this point in the season. The Alouettes make that aforementioned quarterback change, moving off of McLeod Bethel-Thompson and going to the king, Caleb Evans, but they allowed that 12 fourth quarter points that I talked about to the Edmonton Elks in what wound up being their 2nd straight loss. For BC, Sean White boots the Lions over Hamilton in overtime, snapping the Ticats win streak. Big win there for BC, a statement win for them against arguably the best team in the opposite division. Again, more quarterback watch here for Montreal. Is it going to be McLeod Bethel-Thompson? Are they going to give an extended look to Caleb Evans and see kind of what he can do as the QB1 in this offense? Again, was he benched? Did he exit for injury reasons for MBT? How much do you believe what Jason Moss was saying? That'll kind of remain to be seen. But when Caleb Evans did come into the game, he completed 14 of his 18 passes. We love that efficiency. Only good for $113 through the air. He did throw a touchdown, did not throw a pick, added 10 yards on 4 carries in the ground game. Speaking of quarterbacks, hey, Nathan Rourke, he's pretty good. Nathan Rourke, 436 all-purpose yards, but just 2 touchdowns in that game last week, as the aforementioned James Butler, Justin McInnis, who caught 8 balls for $159 in what's been a breakout performance for him this season, and Aiden Eberhardt, who only caught 3 balls last week, but turned it into 120 yards receiving. They grabbed the headlines over Nathan Rourke. But again, Rourke's been having a heck of a season here, putting up a ton of yards, not quite the touchdown numbers that we were used to in his breakout a couple years ago, but definitely moving the ball and keeping that Lions offense chugging up and down the field. Needs to be a little more on the killer instinct-y side of things, in my opinion. Quite frankly, I like Caleb Evans over McLeod Bethel-Thompson just as a quarterback as a whole. I like the dynamic differences that he can bring to that offense that's still just kind of trying to get healthy. So I like Evans over MBT, but obviously I like Nathan Rourke over either of them. I don't think this Owls defense, as good as it is, I don't think they slow the Lions down here. I'm on BC pretty heavily in this one. Again, it's going against the fact that they're only 1-3 at home, where the Owls are 3-1 on the road, but I think BC's the better team right now until Montreal gets healthy. Give me the Lions to beat the Owls. On the line, BC is laying -4 here as a home favorite, and I got them on all 4 of the home teams this week when the whole league over the last month has been completely trending towards road teams and the dogs. I think I got to lay the -4 there on BC. I'm pretty comfortable with this being like more than a 1 possession win. So -4, I feel okay with that. Total in the game set at 51.5 points. Now, Montreal has only hit 3 of 9 overs so far this season, but I think I like an over here because, again, I really don't know what Montreal's defense, or how long, I should say, Montreal's defense is going to kind of hold BC back. I feel like BC is due for a big explosive performance, like a 3-4 touchdown performance from Rourke, something like that. I kind of think that might be what we get this week. I think I'm going to take the over there because I do think Montreal will get their points, and, you know, BC's defense I haven't loved for most of the season from an efficiency perspective. So if they get to 20, I don't really see this game staying under this point total. So give me an over on the 51.5 points. I'm going to go like a 34-20. Originally, I think I was going like 30-23 or something like that, but I just feel like there's going to be moments in this game where the quarterback play will let Montreal down, offer more opportunities for the Lions. I think that's more points on the board for them. So 34-20 for the BC Lions. I like the Lions to win, Lions to cover the -4, and give me an over on the 51.5 point total. Let's keep this ball rolling in CFL Fantasy. My Week 11 CFL Fantasy roster is right in front of your eyes right now. So my big anchors for my team this week are going to be Brady Oliveira at the running back position. I think he has a big game. And look, until the CFL fantasy game begins respecting Keandre Smith, he's never going to leave my lineup. He is the 3rd highest projected, quote unquote, wide receiver in the league this week, and he's minimum money. So, I mean, that's just a cheat code. I'm taking Cody Fajardo at quarterback, saves me a little bit of money, couple thousand, really tempted to take Nathan Rourke, and I might pivot to Rourke later in the week. But I like Fajardo. I like his upside in this matchup against Toronto. And I'm actually going to stack him with KJG, with Kai and Julian Grant, because one thing we know about Cody Fajardo, he loves targeting KJG on the deep balls. I think KJG probably finds the end zone this week. I'm also going to grab Geno Lewis for Ottawa, because if there is one spot where Winnipeg really struggles defensively, it's against the left side receiver. Shout out to my guy Ryan Coop for that piece of information. So I was kind of between Lewis and Hardy, but we're going to go with Lewis there. I'm going to partner Brady Oliveira with AJ Ouellette. Hamilton, the one spot that Hamilton's defense has really kind of struggled this year, at least from a fantasy points perspective, has been against the running back position. So AJO hasn't been lighting the league on fire, but I think he might be due for a breakout this week. And we're going to go with the BC Lions defensively. I think the Lions defense, from a fantasy perspective, is getting underrated here a little bit. Only $3,500. And look, 4 of their games this year have come against, potentially 2 of the best quarterbacks. In games not against Saskatchewan or Hamilton, they're averaging like 4.5 fantasy points a game, which is just about the value on $3,500. So I actually like them as a defensive play this week. I'm rolling the Lions. There you go, folks. Those are my picks and plays for Week 11 in the CFL. We're going to go over them here with you one more time. I've got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beating the Ottawa Redblacks 30-27. I'm taking the +6 on Ottawa in a game that goes over 51.5 points. I like the Edmonton Elks to beat the Toronto Argos 27-20. I'm laying the -3 on Edmonton in a game that stays under the 53.5 point total. I got the Saskatchewan Roughriders beating the Hamilton Ticats 28-23 in a barn burner at Mosaic Stadium, laying the -3 on the Riders in a game that stays under the 53.5 point total. And I got the BC Lions in BC beating Montreal 34-20, laying the -4 on the Lions and going over on the 51.5 point total. That's it for me this week, folks. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. We'll see you again in Week 12. Enjoy the games in Week 11. And from the bottom of my heart, if you have been with me since Week 1 of this season or before Week 1 of this season, and you've been riding along with me every single week, waiting for the breakout like last week to happen, genuinely and sincerely, thank you.